Hi everybody, I'm George and we've been having a really fun day testing out two new cameras from GoPro, the Lit Hero and the MAX2 360 camera. So we've been around East London and we went down Europe's longest slide and we went to an arcade and we went to a go-kart track as well. So it's been a really fun day testing out these cameras and now I'm going to tell you all about them. Let me start with the 360 MAX2, which I had so much fun with just because as a camera operator, I spend so much time of my life thinking about lenses and composition and being very detailed about it all. And sometimes that actually can really distract from me just having a fun day out because I just feel like I'm spending the whole time looking at the back of a screen. And that is exactly what I loved about this camera, is that I just held it and I walked around and I had fun and I didn't think about anything else. That was really refreshing. But also nice to know that it has some really impressive spec too. It can shoot a maximum resolution of 8K, which is pretty insane, and that's in real time, so that's up to 30p. It can shoot 5.6K up to 60p, and it can shoot 4K up to 100p. So of course there's a nice variety of different resolutions and frame rates there, and some really impressive, if you ask me. We are at the, Tiffany's been calling it the world's longest slide. I don't know if I believe that, but we reckon it's the longest in Europe at the very least. And we're about to do it, but before we do it, I thought it's just a good opportunity to tell you a little bit about this GoPro Max. So, obviously it's a 360 camera, but one really nifty thing is that I'm using right now a selfie stick to hold this piece of camera and wander around. And actually the camera itself has some technology which allows it to auto remove the stick, so you don't have to faff around in post with then removing that stick. Which is really useful and pretty impressive actually, considering the fact that each lens actually covers 190 degrees rather than what you perhaps might think of 180, and that just allows it to get that little bit around the edges of the frame, which means that those two images perfectly line up, because of course that's a total of what, 380 degrees, and then it uses that to auto stitch out the thing, which I think is pretty nifty. But on this side, I'm not going to use a selfie stick because it's pretty ridiculous because it's quite a small slide, so I'm just going to hand hold it. So if my grubby fingers enter the frame, apologies. But yeah, for the rest of this video, you will be seeing me largely be using this stick and I'll just auto stitch that out. Pretty cool. In terms of color depth, you have the ability to shoot in log, which of course is really nice for making sure that you maximize that dynamic range. But also just if you're into color grading and you want more flexibility in terms of controlling your image, that's really useful. And alongside that, it can shoot in 8-bit, but it also can shoot in 10-bit, so of course you're getting a lot more colors in there to work with. In terms of the parameters of control when it comes to bit rates, I was really impressed to see that there is a decent bit of control on the system itself. So you can shoot in a low bit rate mode, but actually the maximum bit rate that you can shoot in when just using the camera itself is 120 megabits per second, which is actually really decent. But if you want to utilize GoPro Labs, then you can get that all the way up to even 300 megabits a second. There are interchangeable lenses, and don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that you can like change your lenses to control your focal lengths, but what it does mean is that if you smash up a lens or you damage your GoPro in any way, then you can just take the lens off and replace it, so then your whole system isn't bust, it's just the lens itself, which is really great. Really useful as well when we were in the arcade, because we both were having a bit of fun hitting it with the whack-a-mole hammers, and Tiffany got a little bit excited and did give it a bit of a knock. So it's nice to know that if that did happen to you on your own product, you could just replace it. Now, I just want to caveat that actually we'd planned to do a lot of this video on the go-kart track, and we'd planned to do a lot of stuff where we strap GoPros to ourselves and the cars and stuff. Unfortunately, because of safety precautions, we weren't able to do that. The go-kart track wouldn't allow us to do so. So it did sort of limit our footage there a little bit, but hopefully you can forgive us for that. The other thing I also want to caveat is that when we were in the arcade, you might notice a lot of flicker on the footage, and that's because the camera was automatically set to NTSC, so it was running at 30p. Of course, the lights here in the UK ran at 50 Hertz, which therefore means that that's the reason we shoot 25. That's not going to be a worry with the actual camera. On the actual camera, of course, there will be an NTSC and a power selector, so you can switch between your frame rates depending on where you're filming. But because this is a pre-production product, either I'm a little bit thick and I couldn't find the setting, or the setting isn't there because the product isn't officially released yet. So if you notice flicker in the footage, which you definitely will, please disregard that. That won't be the case when you get the camera on release. There's 6 different microphones on the product as well, so that's really great because it means that you can capture a whole scope of sound needed in a 360 camera. But I also did some talky bits to camera using those microphones, so do just let me know how that sounds. I'm really interested to hear what you think. I'm actually always really impressed with the microphones on little devices like these. Both of these lenses cover a 190-degree field of view, which of course means that there's a nice bit of overlap, which means that then when it's stitching together those two shots, of course, it can make sure that it's absolutely perfect. Now let me move on to the Lit Hero, which is a dinky little camera, which I really like because actually I feel like what this camera is doing is it's taking away all of the sort of techie, nerdy side of using these cameras. So the settings on the camera are very minimal, but that means that they're really designed to just be picked up and used by anybody, which I think is just super smart. One thing that actually both these cameras do is you can just hit record even while the camera is powered off, and the camera will automatically just turn on and start rolling. I think that gives you a sort of good example of how these cameras, they're not built to be fiddling around in menu systems, they are built to be tools just to always be ready to go. One other thing that also both of these cameras do is they both now have a 1/4-inch screw thread as well, which means that they can be screwed into conventional tripod screws and also a variety of like gorilla pods and stuff that we were using to capture our shots. Now the Lit Hero itself is absolutely miniature and it only weighs 93 grams, so you're certainly not going to notice having that in your pocket. So one really cool thing about the light, or lit, or whatever we're going to go with, is that it has an actual light on it. So maybe that's actually why it's called lit. I can't believe I've only just drawn those lines together. So you can see me now, I'm pretty poorly lit, especially with this hat on, and Tiffany now turns on the light, and it's absolutely blinding me, but what it's also doing is actually probably highlighting me really well against the background. So if you do want to separate your subject from the background, use the light. It's cool. It's really nice that it has it, and Tiffany used it in the slide earlier. Exactly. Really good use case subject. When we were going down the slide, I was using the 360 cam, but Tiffany had the Lit Hero, and the slide was really dark. Most of the slide actually wasn't open, so it was really dark in there, and I'm sure that you can see that Tiffany's shots actually look really good, whereas my shots are absolutely going to be completely pitch black. So it just shows you a really good use case for it. I also think if you just want to sort of highlight your subject from the background, so let's say even if on this piece of camera right now, if I was using that Lit Hero and I turn the light on and I put it on its max brightness setting, because there are different brightness settings, then it would just light me a little bit more than the background, which of course is just going to sort of separate me from the background, and that's just a really nice look that a lot of people are trying to achieve. So really cool and just really smart that they added that. In terms of the actual recording modes that you can use, you can shoot 4K up to 60p and you can shoot 4K 30p. That 30p is in 4:3 or 16:9, so of course you can get a slightly more square aspect ratio than the conventional, more rectangular one. That is really useful in the modern age for repurposing stuff to socials, because of course if you're shooting 4:3 rather than 16:9, that means that your shot is going to be closer to the vertical format. So yeah, it just gives you a little bit more flexibility there, or just ensures that actually the shot you're getting in landscape is going to be closer to the portrait composition if you wanted to crop in for social media. But what did I actually think of my day out with these products? Well, I do really just want to reiterate that I had so much fun not thinking about all the tech of it all and just being able to hit record, know that it's getting good shots, know that it's shooting it in a decent enough resolution at good frame rates, the colors are going to look good, the white balance auto settings, all of these things. These cameras are made to be simple to use, and I had a lot of fun doing so. But actually I think that in the modern day and age, especially with how important social media is for people that are perhaps running their own business and stuff like that, we're watching 360 camera footage all the time. You know, let's say I'm like a wedding photographer and I want some behind the scenes to show what I'm doing and perhaps how I interact with my clients and the couples and stuff like that. on my social media. But of course, I don't have necessarily the budget for a full operator, or if I did have even a full operator there, it would be quite distracting and potentially might actually get in the way of the job. Whereas this 360 camera, I can just rig it to myself, or I can rig it to my camera, and then you get excellent behind the scenes content that you can then post on socials. It's a bit more informal, it's a bit more accessible, alongside your actual finalized photos. And that's just one use case, but actually we see them all the time, especially chefs and stuff, you know, if they're creating stuff while they're going at their restaurant. A lot of these people are using GoPros, or they're using 360 cameras, and now they might be using the GoPro 360 camera. So yeah, let me know what you thought of the footage. If you have any questions, of course, pop them below and we'll do our best to answer you. But I hope you had as much fun watching this video as I had on my day out, and I'll see you next time.